By the time I'm posting this, it'll have been 2 months since the Murder Drones finale was released. It's also been 2 months since I've been thinking about how much better the finale could have been. As much as I love the finale, I have some gripes over it, specifically how N and J were handled. N didn't get a lot of moments to shine in this episode, and I think this was one of his weakest. Of course, episode 5 takes the cake there, but let's not get into that. I also wasn't happy with how Jay's arc ended. Now, you could say that with the limited time they had, not much could have been done, and that this was the best ending we could have gotten. But I disagree. And to prove that, I wanted to challenge myself to try and rewrite the finale. 2 things I want to address before I start the rewrite. 1, I want to make it clear that with this rewrite, I am being conscious of the episode's time limit. Most if not everything I'm about to talk about is just replacing scenes, not adding new ones. The second thing, and this should go without saying, but this isn't meant to be a jab at the writers. They have more experience and skill than I do, especially since I'm not a writer. I am a drawer. Specifically this one. I like this one. So don't think of this as me fixing the finale. This is just stuff that I personally would have liked to see, and you're free to disagree with whatever I say. So first off, cut out the teacher. Listen, I like the slap, I really do, but you can't just end the previous episode with the reawakening of a god, and then just cut to this guy. Why are you the first character we see? So instead, cut to N. Have a wide shot of the destruction going around, with him in the very center of it all, on his knees, watching Copper 9 get consumed by this godlike being that was once his sister. Alone at the end of the world, having just lost the first person who saw him to be more than just a machine, but his own person. Cut to a close-up shot of his face, absolutely distraught and in terror, as he slowly turns his head to look at Jay attacking Thad, Lizzie, and Khan in the distance. Have his shock turn to rage and betrayal as he decides to attack Jay. So basically, instead of V and J fighting, we replace V with N. As much as I love V and J's fight, it didn't give us new information except for the fact that not only did Jay know that Tessa was really Sin, but that she was tricked by Sin as well. You can still do this with N, and it'd be so much better to do it with N specifically because he hasn't had a chance to talk to Jay at all since the pilot. V knew pretty much everything except the Sinessa reveal, but N has been constantly kept in the dark by both of them, and he never got to process any of his trauma throughout the show, because either the plot had to keep going, something would happen to Uzi, or he'd just laugh it off.
Not dealing with this great, to be immediately honest. Okay, it's gone.
Like, forget that throughout his life he was treated as literal garbage or used as a weapon of mass destruction. In the previous episode alone, he saw his girlfriend get possessed, had the only cure for her destroyed right in front of him, watched her sacrifice herself and supposedly die for all he knows, all while also being betrayed by Tessa, who wasn't even Tessa. If there was ever a time for him to go absolutely feral, this is it. You can have a character that copes with their trauma by using humor, sure, but you have to let them hit rock bottom and actually stay in it for a while instead of having them bounce right back to normal after 5 seconds. Especially when we compare him to Uzi, who's had a lot of time to be alone with her thoughts and actually let things affect her. N is the second main protagonist of the show, and yet to a lot of people, myself included at times, he feels like he's just a love interest archetype. Am I saying that he didn't change throughout the show? Absolutely not. He learned to stand up for himself, and in the final battle, he didn't let Sin take advantage of him. But again, these things go almost completely unnoticed because we never see him at his worst, and he ends up coming off as a one-note character. You can't just have him somehow know that Uzi is alive, crash into her with his spaceship, and have him turn around after everything that happened in the last episode and go,
Spaceship pilot!
It doesn't do justice to either his character or the audience. This is why N fighting Jay in the finale would have been so much more satisfying, because that would have been his rock bottom. So not only would this be a great moment for N, it would be amazing for Jay. I know I just went on a tangent about N, but I also need to go on another tangent here to explain Jay's character, especially since she has very little screen time, and I really want to drive this point home since she is one of my favorite characters. So, there's a lot of people that think Jay should have died in the finale, and I disagree. My girl was done dirty all the way through, man. I'd go as far as to say she's the most tragic character in the entire show. The only person she showed genuine care for was Tessa, who she tried to protect but ultimately failed. We don't even know if Jay was conscious to see Tessa die in front of her, or if she woke up later and saw the aftermath. Then she was under Sin's control, promised that if she followed her orders, she, N, and V would be safe. She gets killed by some Hot Topic emo, gets rebuilt by Dissolver, and is back to working with Sin, except this time she's alone, still thinking that if she finishes her job, she'll be safe with N and V, while lying to them about Tessa's true identity. And finally, when faced with the end of the world, she reaches out to V as her last attempt to reconnect with her, to finally have someone she cares about by her side. And all she gets is
Oh, how about you bite me?
And then gets thrown out of the fight. You could write her completely out of the final fight and absolutely nothing would change. I didn't even know she was there most of the time, and I didn't realize until my rewatch that she gets bonked like a ping pong ball and wasn't seen again until the credits. I didn't even bring up the fact that she draws herself as an actual human instead of drawing herself accurately. Out of all the characters in the show, she's the most robotic one, and yet she's the only one that wants to be human to some degree. The reason I'm bringing all of this up is to show that she was alone until the very end. And unlike V or N, she was never given a chance or reason to switch sides. She wasn't working with Sin to avenge Tessa, she didn't have a choice. From Jay's perspective, this was the only option she had. Why go against an eldritch being that can easily kill and bring me back as many times as it needs? Why think of the morality of my actions when I can just follow the rules and hope for a better future? Why fight back when I know I have no chance of winning and losing brings me back in the ring anyways? Killing her without her having a chance of redemption wouldn't have been tragic or given her a satisfying ending, it would have just been lazy. And you might be thinking, okay, well, why not have V reach out to Jay during the fight? And as cool as that would be, I personally don't think V is capable of realizing everything I just said and then proceed to offer a helping hand. She's a more caring person now, for sure, but she still has a long way to go. That's why N, the person who helps literally everyone, is the better fit here. So back to the rewrite. Have N pin J down to the ground, as a cool callback to the pilot, point a missile at her head, and get surprised when she doesn't try to fight back. Have her say something like, "Do it. I don't care anymore. You know there's no escape, even in death." This is when N shifts and offers help. Then don't escape. Fight back. With us. I really hate writing dialogue, by the way. Ugh. Brother, ugh. Anyway, now from here, 4 things can happen. 1. Jay accepts and redeems herself, joining the fight with N, Uzi, and V. 2. Jay refuses, keeps fighting N, and gets killed immediately by either N or maybe by Thad with the railgun. 3. Jay accepts the offer, but gets shut down by Sin. 4. Jay is unsure, stays neutral, and leaves to be alone. And I'll be honest, I got stuck on this part. My least favorite out of these options is the first one, where Jay does a complete 180 and joins forces with N instantly. As cool as it would be to see all of them fight together, I find it hard to believe that Jay would have that much of a character change in such a short time. It's possible, but not really believable. Plus, you then have to make the final fight a 4-on-1, which is extra work, or have her be in the background with the supporting cast, which would suck. Another problem is that this wouldn't really be satisfying for her character. Jay's character flaw is that she puts law and order above her own morality. I'd even go as far as to say she's actually pretty similar to N, in the way that she depends on order to function as much as N depends on Uzi. For her to truly change, she needs to learn to be her own authority and make her own decisions. So my favorite option out of the 3 would be for Jay to be unsure, stay neutral, and leave. Have her finally acknowledge that she doesn't know what to do and to take the backseat. Think of this as her good ending. If we want to give her a tragic ending, we can have her do one of the other 2 options, where she either refuses and gets killed off by N, or have her side with N only to be shut down by Sin, since she's practically useless at that point, and Sin can technically still control her. The reason she'd have to be killed off in the rewrite is because in this version we are giving her the chance to redeem herself. For her to double down and continue that path would not only be understandable, but it would actually be tragic, because at that point she would be causing her own downfall. If she stays alive till the end in this scenario, it just feels like she'd be getting a cop-out. Again, I got pretty stuck here and can't decide which would be the better option, because on one hand, I do love tragic endings, and it'd be nice if out of the disassembly drones trio, one wouldn't survive till the end. But on the other hand, I love Jay a lot, and I want her to have a good ending. So again, my personal favorite is her staying neutral, and after the events of Sin, she can slowly learn to truly live out of her own free will. You're free to pick your own favorite. I'm actually curious on what you guys think, or maybe even throw something that I haven't considered. At this point, we can cut back to Uzi and have her talk with Nori. The only thing I change about this scene is to let them have a hug, for a few seconds at least. Cause remember, the entire show, Uzi has been investigating about her mom, and technically they reunite in the previous episode, but Uzi didn't really know that. And just as a reminder, Uzi at this point doesn't even know if anyone survived the explosion, so give them this moment. Have Nori make her way to Uzi as Uzi grabs her and pulls her into a tight hug, crying with her mother in her arms. Nori looking surprised for a second, but then hugging her back. Then you can talk about Nightcore battles. Oh, but how is Uzi gonna get back to Copper 9 if N doesn't hit her with the spaceship? She can probably just use her powers to stand on one of the rocks and make her way down. Until we cut back to N as he looks up at the sky, sees Uzi crashing down, grabs the spaceship to reach her, and continue with them reuniting. I can't believe you're alive, and then you can do the spaceship pilot bit. Followed by Sin destroying the ship, we still get to keep the falling kiss while also giving the two time to breathe. Since J and V aren't fighting in the rewrite, we continue from the suck on this bit.
Suck on this!
The episode continues as normal, but wait, what about V? Are you implying she should have stayed dead? No. We still keep the hallway scene, but now it's even better because we don't know if V is alive. Granted, her death wasn't very convincing, but the scene ends up being way more tense because in this scenario, we don't know if Sin is actually using a trap this time or not. Don't even show V's face, just have close-up shots of her walking down the hall, or put the camera behind her to make it really spooky, you know? I'm personally very happy that V didn't die because this hallway scene was a perfect way to put a little bow on her arc and finish it off. I won't go into her writing since other people have already done that and have done an amazing job, so go check out those videos if you're interested. Anyways, the episode continues as normal after that. Jay wouldn't be in the final fight, but that's okay because she really doesn't do anything there. Though that would mean they'd have to cut out the tennis part, which sucks because I actually really like that. Maybe have Sin rip off her own head instead? She'd do that. She's silly. The episode continues as normal from there, and that is the end of the rewrite. Again, all of these changes are just replacing scenes, not lengthening the episode. But if we disregard time limits completely, another fun option would be to split the finale into 2 episodes. One, where N, Uzi, and V are separated and we switch between their POVs. N would be fighting J, V would be fighting off the Sentinels and reach the surface. We could also see her getting attacked or taunted by the Solver, similar to how N was in the previous episode, and maybe get some flashbacks of what she's been through since the manor. Meanwhile, Uzi talks to her mom and makes her way down. Then for the next episode, we can keep the silly stuff, including the teacher, while having the 3 reunite in their own time and proceed with the fight. I can't really explore this option too much though, since this would involve way more new scenes and I don't have the time or energy for that. Now originally, this is where I would have ended the video. And because I'm saying this, you might already be checking how much of the video is left. I see you. I ended up rewatching this show 2 times to make this video, and I also looked into what everyone else thought about the finale and the show in general. I've seen some confusion over a few things, and some takes that make me question if certain people even watched the show. I could just make a separate video, but I don't want to make 2 Murder Drones videos, and I'd rather just get this out of the way so I can sleep knowing I shouted everything I wanted to the void before my obsession goes poof and I lose interest. So, top 5 worst Murder Drones takes. Number 1. How did Uzi break free from the Solver's control? Was it just out of free will? Uzi controlling her Solver powers wasn't really a test of will. Every time her eye would glitch throughout the series, it was when she either was or felt alone, and it's something she struggles with a lot in the series. In the finale, we see her again struggle to keep control until she is reminded of N. Her breaking free completely was when she realized that not only did she have N by her side, but also V, her parents, and Thad and Lizzie too. Uzi finally learned to trust others and be vulnerable. Thus her character arc was one of the best, alongside V. Number 2. Sin was nerfed in the final battle for the sake of plot. Sin is fully capable of killing everyone, but it's literally been shoved into our faces throughout the entire show that she loves theatrics. Killing them straight away isn't fun. She has to play with her food. From doing well-timed giggles, slowly tearing them apart, using illusions or holograms, the list goes on. It's also why she kept N, V, and J's personalities. Plus, I want you to pretend for a moment that you're some eldritch god. You have the ability to do whatever you want as long as you have a physical body to do so. You've killed anything standing in your way, you've controlled your own army of robots, consumed several planets, and throughout your entire existence, no one has been an actual challenge to you. Now imagine all of a sudden someone finally manages to completely break free from your control, and it turned out to be a teenage girl from Hot Topic that listens to Nightcore. You wouldn't outright kill someone with balls like that, you'd pull up finally a worthy opponent, our battle will be legendary. I will say though, it would have been nice if we knew what Sin planned to do after destroying Copper 9. You can have a silly and cartoony villain that wants to take over the world, but for the type of series Murder Drones is, it would have been nice if we knew what Sin planned to do afterwards if she had succeeded. It's times like these when I want to rewatch Megamind again. Number 3. Doll was completely useless. To the plot, yeah, she wasn't a great obstacle since her actions didn't really affect our main characters. She did give us some lore in early episodes and was a pretty cool character in general. But the best part about her is that Doll is Uzi's foil. Doll was Uzi if she continued to work alone, refusing to make amends with the disassembly drones, and dying to the solver with no one around to help. Doll's last words being "fight back" is useless, and yet it's such a perfect line for her character, because even in death she still believed she wasn't strong enough to survive, when the reality was that she was alone. This is why Doll lost and Uzi won. Number 4. Uzi and N didn't have complete character arcs. Uzi learned to depend on others and be herself unapologetically. N learned to stand up for himself and finally become his own person over time. Unfortunately, due to the fast pacing of the show, he again felt more like the love interest despite being the second main character, while Uzi is very much her own character. Number 5. V trusting Uzi was rushed and was out of nowhere. Rushed, yes, but not completely out of nowhere. I think it's obvious to V how much Uzi truly cares for N and the length she'll go despite being under the Solver's influence for the entire show. However, they really did need another episode. If intermission was canon, this would have helped the series a lot, and I personally choose to take it as canon. These last couple of points basically chalk down to there wasn't enough time, which sucks. If I were to describe how the characters were written to someone who hasn't watched the show, I'd say it's like seeing the waiter come with your meal, and right when they're about to get to your table, they trip and drop it on the ground. There's still some food on the plate to eat, and you're not mad at the waiter, but you still look at the food on the floor and think to yourself, damn, if only. This show has a lot of problems like fast pacing and complete tonal shifts that make it hard to not only understand the story, but also to take it seriously. It's genuinely frustrating when we have such a cool moment followed immediately by something like,
What a bounding hopster-ruffle!
Why are you talking like that?
I get that it's meant to be a horror comedy series, and I like silly things, I really do, but when you do it all the time, it taints every cool and meaningful scene you set up. If the show can't take itself seriously for just a moment, then why should the viewer? There's also been certain things that were either slowly dropped or just completely useless, like the disassembly drones needing oil to avoid overheating and building the corpse spire. I honestly wish that overheating was kept as an actual problem until Uzi became V and N's admin, since it served as a good failsafe from the disassembly drones rebelling. But this also would have caused more problems, and with the small amount of episodes, I don't blame them for taking some of this stuff out back and killing them silently. I obviously don't know what went behind the production of the series and what limits Glitch put for episodes and time, but I think at the very least they definitely should have had a previously on Murder Drones segment in the beginning of each episode. Have all the reveals and key information play at once so your audience doesn't have to take out a notebook and pen to keep up with the story. This would have been so good when the show was still going too, cause episodes were released so far apart, you'd have to re-watch all the other ones to understand what was going on. And sure, that works, but I for one was lazy, and I'm sure I wasn't the only one who wanted to go straight to the new episode and enjoy continuing. Granted, you could do that and rewatch the other episodes, but I personally was lazy, and I don't think I was the only one either. If Glitch ever decides to greenlight another plot-heavy series and stick with uploading several months apart, then I really hope they can learn from Murder Drones and do that, or allow more episodes. You'd think after I spent the last couple of minutes pointing out everything wrong with the show, I'd say something like show bad, or not recommend, or that I don't like the show. And you would be silly for thinking that, because ultimately, I genuinely love the show, and I'd even go as far as to say it's one of my favorites. Granted, the target audience of this show is teens who grew up on the internet, which includes me, and therefore I am biased here. But this show has heart, and it has so much of it. From the characters, voice acting, animation, writing, the story, I could go on. You'd think after watching this show 3 times, I would have gotten bored of it, but I honestly want to watch it again. And every time I do, I get to notice small hidden things, like Sin making little emoticons during the final battle, or Uzi putting her hand in front of En's when confronting Sin. One of my favorite clips from the show is literally Yeva playing Tetris. I'm not even kidding, this lives rent-free in my head, and I miss Tetris. Maybe my next video should be on competitive Tetris. It's so easy to forget that this is an indie show on YouTube. We have gone from getting well-polished pilots from different artists over the years to a full-on show of Netflix quality being released on YouTube for free. Do you understand how genuinely insane that is? These past several years haven't been kind to the artists of the entertainment industry at all. With cable being used less, streaming services on the rise, entire episodes somehow getting leaked, indefinite pauses, cancellation of shows, layoffs, rushed and meaningless slop, people literally losing their jobs to AI. I want to make my own shows. And if you'd asked me years ago how I would do that, I would have just told you, oh, I'll just get into the animation industry and maybe after a few years get lucky, pitch my pilot, and hope it works out. But that's not a viable option anymore, because even if I were to get lucky and have my show greenlit, I'd still have to fight like a rabid dog to have more than 2 seasons with 8 episodes each. Getting any kind of work as an artist in the entertainment industry, at the time I'm writing this, honestly seems pointless and too risky. And it's been like that for a few years now. But if we live in a time where we can get stuff like this, made with genuine love and care, despite having a limited budget and team, then I have hopes for the future. Is Murder Drones perfect? No. Is it great? For me and a lot of other people, yeah, it is. I can get that a lot of people find the show too edgy or cringe or self-aware, but this show, to its very core, is about being cringe and free unironically. Maybe it sounds stupid to some people, but I wish this was something I could have watched years ago when I was more like Uzi. I wish I could have seen someone like her and realized that there are people like me, and that there are people who will accept me for who I am. But I'm glad to have it now, as it's still something I'm figuring out and learning as I go. So, with that being said, I hope you cringe and die now as I say, bite me! I finally got some better mic equipment, but I'm still figuring out how to use it and adjusting some stuff, so I hope the audio for this turns out good. Please be good, please. This is the first time I've ever dived this deep into a show, and it was so fun, but so tiring. Next month's video is definitely gonna be art related, as long as nothing else worms into my mind until then. Oh man. I didn't even get to talk about what I was drawing throughout this whole thing, so I'll do that now. In case you didn't already notice, I love Sin a lot, so I redrew a batch of screenshots. These took less than 10 minutes each, but I cleaned them up a bit later and colored them later on. I couldn't find a good reference for Sin's 3D model, and the screenshots I was working with were pretty dark, so it was kinda hard to get the hair right. But I figured it out eventually. It's fine. I really miss redrawing screenshots because it's so fun. You don't have to think about what to draw, it's right there. And it's way better when you're trying to stick to the original art style. It's super fun. Some of these came out a bit ugly, but that's okay. I love them all. Embrace the ugly. For the final drawing, I want to draw Sin playing the drums. I was listening to this album and got really inspired by it. It's so good. I love it. I posted this on Reddit and had some people say she'd be great at the drums with her tendrils, and I'm pretty pissed that I forgot about those, honestly. It's a missed opportunity, but oh well. I wouldn't be surprised if I drew her again, and maybe then I'll get to draw her just going ham on those things. For a while now, I feel like my art's been stiff because for this past year, I've mainly been focusing on character design, and it's hard to think of a pose other than sparkle on, it's Wednesday. So this was an attempt to break free from that, and it definitely helped me loosen up a bit. I love to do some more fun poses and maybe get back into learning animation? I've been wanting to get back into that or start learning 3D modeling for such a long time now, so maybe my next video will be on that. Who knows? We'll see. You'll just have to wait and see. But until then, I hope you all have a great day or night, and I shall see you in the next video. Now from here, 4 things can happen. What the 4 things can happen? You're not dead or whatever.